Casey Anthony's lawyer faces another accusation of bad behavior. Jose Baez could be in hot water over alleged unethical conduct. He is facing reportedly 2 accusations now before the Florida Bar Association. And now CNN affiliate WFTV is reporting that one of the people who filed a complaint against him could be none other than the judge presiding over the Casey Anthony murder case. What? That's right, Judge Stan Strickland. The bewildering allegations involve Private Eye Dominic Casey, and he's the gumshoe working for the Anthonys, and the possibility that Baez instructed this Private Eye to call him before calling 911 if that Private Eye found the remains of little Kaylee. Now, that PI, Dominic Casey, sparked a huge controversy. You see him right there when he was videotaped searching for the remains back in November, right there at the very same location where little Kaylee's remains were found a month later, right there. Dominic Casey spoke to police and to CNN affiliate WESH about the speculation that somebody on his side knew where Kaylee was.
Had I had the misfortune to stumble across any remains, the first thing I would have done would have been I would have prayed. The second thing I would have done, I would have stayed right at the location, called 911.
Is the implication behind this new allegation that the defense somehow knew where Kaylee was all along? And how did they know that, if they did? As for Baez, his spokesperson said, quote, Mr. Baez has done nothing unethical throughout the investigation. And as Casey Anthony's defense lawyer, he and his counsel will respond at the appropriate time to refute any and all of the untrue allegations. Meantime, Casey's ex-fiancée, Jesse Grund, goes on the record about suspecting that guy right there, was going to be framed for Kaylee's murder. Listen to his September interview with the cops.
Did Padilla tell you how you killed the baby? Did they say how they were putting that together?
I think he did, but I don't remember.
Try to remember for me, because that's pretty crucial.
I think he may have said that I drowned Kaylee. I think that's what they're trying to say.
Did you intentionally drown Kaylee?
Yeah.
Where was that supposed to have happened?
I think in the pool in the backyard.
Wow. This is shocking. Jesse Grund makes more stunning claims that we will reveal in just moments. But first, let's get my expert panel in on all this. Rebecca Rose Woodland, criminal defense attorney. Paul Callan, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor. And still here, Darren Kavanaugh, criminal defense attorney and voice of reason, as we call him. And Gene Casares, correspondent at the Legal Network in session. Gene, these allegations that Baez allegedly told the Anthony's Private Eye not to call the cops, not to call 911 if he found the body, but to call him. Why are they so potentially explosive?
Because it's misconduct. It is ethical misconduct, allegedly. Jane, I called the State Bar of Florida today, and I did confirm there is an open investigation. Now, we've got to make sure everybody realizes anybody can file a complaint here, and normally it is not public who filed the complaint, what the complaint was about, but they can confirm if an investigation is going on. I did confirm it was in regard to a Dominic Casey issue, but now late this afternoon, WFTV is going one step farther, saying there are 2 investigations, one being from the judge himself.
That is a shocker to me. Paul Callan, I've never heard of a judge presiding over a murder case filing a complaint, if this is true. This is just one report. I have no independent confirmation of it, against the attorney for the defendant whose case he is presiding over.
Wow, it's very rare, Jane. It's not unheard of. I've actually seen it happen in cases where a lawyer does something unethical in court and the judge makes a referral to the grievance committee. But here, this is pre-trial. Maybe it involves the burial or the remains of the child. And how would the judge know what the investigator had done? And how would that give him grounds to make the referral? It's very odd and very unusual.
Now, Darren Kavanaugh, there's something called suborning perjury. In other words, my understanding of it is that a defense attorney cannot represent a defendant that he knows is guilty.
Well, you can represent them, but suborning perjury refers to the ethical boundaries about what you can do when you know your client, who's got a right to either testify or not testify, wants to get on the stand, for example, and tell a lie. And so there are certain ways that lawyers must behave and ask your client a narrative because they've got that constitutional right to testify. So there are certain things that lawyers need to be cautious of. But one thing on this fundamental question about this complaint, of course, it is highly unusual that a judge would make it, because if it's something that relates to an incident that happened in court, typically that's dealt with by way of a contempt proceeding. And this idea that it relates to the investigator, I would suspect that it may be a lot of things, but it's probably not Jose Baez saying don't call 911, because no one's under an affirmative obligation to call 911 if they locate a body, although we'd all like to think that it's good form if you do. No, of course not. As a matter of fact, it could go the other way.
So if I walk home tonight and find a dead body in the gutter on the way home, I just can go, oh, la-di-da. I didn't see that, and I'm not in trouble.
You have no affirmative obligation to call 911, although it's a polite thing to do. But in fact, it even cuts the other way, that on the defense team, Jose Baez would be in far greater trouble with the bar, I suspect, if they actually did call 911, because that could be divulging incriminating information
let me jump
incriminate his client.
Let me jump in with an interesting story here in New York. There was a case involving a lawyer whose client told him where a body was buried. They went out into the woods, the client dug the body up, and the lawyer did not report it. He was prosecuted. The court threw the case out. They said the attorney-client privilege ruled, and he did not have an obligation to turn his client in.
And there's another caveat here that I want to point out, is that Dominic Casey originally, as a private eye, worked for Jose Baez, and then at approximately October of last year switched over to being the private eye for the Anthony family. So if he was working for the lawyer, don't they have some kind of protection because they're both working together?
Well,
and let's bring Rebecca Rose Woodland in on that.
Well, Jane, I sit on the grievance committee in New York here, so I've seen both sides. I've seen attorneys that are being brought up on grievances for revealing confidences, and as well judges reporting attorneys. But this is an odd situation. I have to agree with all our guests. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Where is this coming from?
Jane?
If the judge is investigating, what is it?
Here's an idea, Jane. Do you remember about a week ago when Jose Baez wanted an ex parte hearing with the judge, all by himself with the judge, to discuss a very private matter, because he wanted a subpoena for some evidence for their defense, didn't want anyone to know. The judge's order said, we cannot do that. We can have a closed-door session with all parties, but not just you by yourself. Did something come from that communication?
I think that's a great point, because a lot of times in criminal cases, a piece of evidence comes into the hands of a defense attorney, a weapon, maybe something that was found in conjunction with the body. The defense attorney holds on to it.
Okay.
Does he have to turn it over?
I got to move on because so many tidbits here. We've heard a great deal about a fight between Casey and Cindy Anthony the night before little Kaylee went missing. Now Jesse Grund, Casey's ex-fiancé, painting a much more vivid picture with possible physical violence. Listen.
Lee, shortly after my second interview with Orange County, confided in me that the reason that he thought, Cindy confided in him that the reason he thought she felt that Casey ran off was there was a big fight between the two of them. And the fight concerned Casey not being home a lot and not bringing Kaylee by. It got into a very heated argument, which turned physical, and Cindy started choking Casey.
Was there anyone else in the house when this happened?
He didn't actually expand upon that. As far as I understood from what he told me, it was just Cindy and Casey.
So, Rebecca Rose Woodland, if it was just Cindy and Casey, can any of this get into testimony unless Cindy admits it in court?
No, I mean, this is hearsay. So third-party statements can't be admitted in court, so he's a third party. He just knows this. Cindy now, I'm sure, will be questioned by prosecutors intensely, and if she's on the stand, she has to tell the truth. We all know that. Will she? We don't know that, but they will certainly question her as far as they can. The defense will object, and we'll see how far it goes if the judge allows this line of questioning at all.
Darren Kavanaugh, 10 seconds. How will this fact, this important fact of a fight the night before the girl goes missing, get into before the jurors?
Oh, my God, I can't answer anything in 10 seconds, Jane, please. You're talking to a panel of lawyers here. There's lots of ways to try and get stuff in through the back door, and I wish I could give you more from the voice of reason, but I hear the music in the background.
All right, well, we've silenced the voice of reason. Thank you, everyone, for the great insight.